Times Influence Initiative.
India, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Rapid economic reforms, ease of doing business, and the recognition of the country as the preferred destination for global investments are all signs of a strong economy. The structural reforms of the last 4 years have resulted in India receiving global recognition as the powerhouse with a voice that matters. As a nation with more than 1 billion dreams rises to claim its due on the global stage, we bring to you the 5th edition of the India Economic Conclave, which aims to engage, enable and encourage global voices to further the India growth story. Backed by the theme of shaping India's 5 trillion growth agenda, this year the India Economic Conclave celebrated the leadership of the Indian economy on the world stage. A series of power-packed sessions with global visionaries and key thought leaders like Ariana Huffington, Sadhguru, Ranveer Singh, Piyush Goyal and Sophia the humanoid robot deliberated upon the steps required to further unleash the true potential of India. The yearly conclave aimed at anticipating, formulating and executing strategies also had top policy makers like Arun Jaitley, Dharmendra Pradhan, Trivendra Singh Rawat, Devendra Fadnavis, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Kishore Biyani and Baba Ramdev in attendance.
Welcome to the 5th edition of Times Network's India Economic Conclave. Now, this is a unique thought leadership platform where we create dialogue between policy makers, CEOs, and global leaders on key issues related to business, economy, as well as governance.
As you all know, our Prime Minister has set the agenda for putting India in the elite club of $5 trillion economies. Keeping this in mind, the underlying theme of IEC 2018 has been set as fast track to $5 trillion. I now request Mr. V. Vaidyanathan, founder and chairman, Capital First, Mr. Vijay Karya, chairman, managing director at the Ravan Group, and Times Network's MD and CEO, M.K. Anand, to please escort our chief guest, the Maharashtra Chief Minister, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, to the stage for officially inaugurating the session by the lighting of the lamp. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Let's invite the Times Network Managing Director and CEO M.K. Anand to deliver the welcome address and introduce the main theme, Fast Track to $5 trillion.
Honorable Chief Minister Sri Devendra Fadnavis, other distinguished guests, on behalf of Times Network, I welcome you all to the 5th edition of India Economic Conclave. This conclave in 2018 assumes significance as it comes at a time when India and the world are standing at the cusp of big transformation. India is seen as the next growth frontier and is expected to power global economic growth in the next decade. We are currently over $2 trillion economy and are expecting to breach the $5 trillion economy mark in 10 years by 2028 or thereabouts. The need of the hour is to work on a strategy to fast-track this growth. India Economic Conclave has over the years established itself as the go-to platform for policymakers, top CEOs of India Incorporated, and thought leaders from across the world. I am sure disruptive ideas from this summit will provide key players the impetus, inspiration, and resolve to fast-track India's entry into the elite club of $5 trillion economies. I once again thank Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis and other distinguished guests, and indeed each one of you here for taking out your time to attend this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. It's time now for our opening address, which will be delivered by Capital First founder and chairman, V. Vaidyanathan.
Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra, our colleagues from ET Now, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. This theme, fast track to a $5 trillion economy, is just so inspiring. When we talk of a $5 trillion economy, it energizes us from the context from which we come from. In 2007, we were all mighty pleased with ourselves when we crossed $1 trillion for the first time. In 2018, it's $2.6 trillion. And by 2025, as I said, we're expecting this to be $5 trillion. That's a five-fold increase in 20 years, which is just less than a traditional generation. I'm sure for all Indians who are tracking the economy and the impact such GDP can have on us, it is hugely inspirational. The first impact that comes or jumps at us is from the resources point of view. Today, on roads, when we see the public reports, this year, India is expected to build 16,400 kilometers of highways. If we even sustain the current allocation towards highways, we will be building 35,000 kilometers of highways in 2025. That definitely fast-tracks the economy even from there on. Number two impact is on consumption. Number three, our per capita income at that point of time is expected to increase from the current number of $1,800 to $1,900 to $3,500. Roughly, give or take, between 2.5 times to 3 times will be the size of every single industry in 2025 when we touch $5 trillion. And 3 times of today is definitely very inspirational and is also a very large number. If we see such strong benefits for everybody in the ecosystem as a result of this growing GDP, whether consumption or investments or democratization of credit, it will be a huge privilege for all of us going through such a transformational change in this country during our lifetimes. All in all, therefore, in summary, our country has made significant strides and reforms, has made almost a 7 to 7.5% the base case of growth, which I think is fantastic, and the implication across the ecosystem we talked about and in the common man's life, and the availability of resources for growth and the resources for Human Development Index improvement, I think are significant benefits of the $5 trillion economy coming in front of us. We are all greatly excited by it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening patiently. Thank you.
I now request the Chief Minister, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, to deliver the keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
At the outset, I would like to congratulate Times Network for bringing this conclave to Mumbai. This conclave belongs to Mumbai. Mumbai is real economic capital of India. And to deliberate about a $5 trillion economy, Mumbai is the best place. And I'm sure this conclave will set a tone towards our goal of achieving a $5 trillion economy by 2025. When it was announced by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Modi ji, many of us felt that it's too ambitious. But today, when we have become 6th largest economy of world, I feel that now this target seems quite achievable. It's time for India to aspire. It's time for India to achieve. And I think if we try, we will be able to achieve the target of $5 trillion by 2025. Achieving a growth rate of more than 10% is a challenge. The global scenario, the external factors have their own effect on our economy. But I think despite all these impediments, if we work sustainably and strategically, I think the $5 trillion is achievable. $1 trillion should come from agriculture and allied activities. The second trillion should come from manufacturing. The biggest contribution to $5 trillion economy would come from the services sector. It is estimated that out of this 3 trillion, 1 trillion can come from digital economy. Health and nutrition is also one sector. Housing is one sector where we can add a lot of values. We need a horizontal push of infrastructure. Infrastructure is key to 5 trillion economy. The governance has changed in India, and with this governance and with the decisive policies of Honorable Prime Minister, all of us will witness by 2025 India entering the elite club of 5 trillion. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.
This year, the India Economic Conclave 2018 aimed to set the tone for constructive dialogues and discussions on the critical points concerning the economy. The first panel discussion of the event gave an overview into the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for India on its way to becoming a $5 trillion economy.
We've, decided to have this panel as a slight departure because here, ladies and gentlemen, are the bunch of people who actually are driving the network and therefore opinion amongst India's decision makers. So I will, take this opportunity to talk to each one of them and get their perspective on what is, what are the impediments to this so-called 5 trillion agenda, as well as their views would be very, very interesting to you because they are, as a matter of their profession, interacting on a daily basis with the people who are decision makers of the highest order in India. Let me start with introducing Mihir Bhatt. Mihir is the chief curator of this conclave. He's the content manager of this conclave. So let me ask him as to what is the aim and objective of India Economic Conclave, this one and the future ones?
When we were planning India Economic Conclave, one option was that we look at maybe global stars or celebrities, get them to talk here and have a nice, huge conclave. The second option, and being Times Network, which is our responsibility also, is actually to bring out topics or issues which matter for the growth of the country. So we felt that while India is growing at 7%, what has also happened globally is that since China has slowed down, by default we have become the fastest growing economy today. But nobody today is talking about double-digit growth that maybe 5-7 years back we were referring to. But at 7%, is it enough? That was the basic question that we asked. How can we as a network create a platform where we start an ongoing conversation about how we can fast-track that and how we can address some of the most core and basic issues which are relevant for a country like India, be it poverty, be it education, be it social upliftment, be it the real trickling down of effect of a fastest growing economy to the last man in the queue. That was the basic thought.
So Priya, we have broken out of the 5% growth or the so-called Hindu rate of growth, as I said, and come to the 7% band. When you look at the numbers over the last almost 20 years now, after 1999, which was I think 5.5%, we have been around the 7% band for a long time. And clearly that's not enough. We have not been able to break out of this ceiling. What do you think holds us back?
In one word, politics. If I may elaborate on that further, I think lack of planning. I think we've been speaking about agriculture all morning here, where he spoke about it, the Chief Minister spoke about it. If 70 to 80% of our population at one time was involved in agriculture, one never really saw the numbers. 80% of those farmers have land holdings that are less than 1 hectare. It was never going to be a remunerative occupation. It was never going to be sustainable. We did not plan all these years to move people out of agriculture. So agriculture, the emphasis on that, trying to take people out of it and putting them into far more remunerative professions should have been the key. I think our huge dependence on oil. And I think somewhere, you referred to passive optimism. Somewhere that passive optimism, things will take care, 7% is perhaps enough. 7% is never going to be enough for a nation that will have the youngest population in 2-3 years down the line. We've got to grow at higher numbers. But the sad part of our growth is that in countries like Europe, where people squabble over the future of economies and the future of growth, we in India squabble over the past rates of growth across governments. So I think politics has a lot to do with where we are today.
Faye, farmer distress is continuously in the news over the last few quarters. What are the real issues?
I think the fact that in the cities we even ask if the farmer distress is politically motivated shows how perhaps disconnected we are as urban Indians from what's happening in rural India. Thousands of farmers have committed suicide just this year. The count is above 6,000 according to the Agriculture Minister. Nobody kills themselves for politics. Nobody kills themselves to make any one political party look good or bad. Our team has traveled through most of the big agricultural states, including Maharashtra, met with farmers, met with tribal farmers. There is acute distress across the country. With, like Supriya said, and I completely agree with her, with such a large population of our country dedicated to farming, it's something we cannot ignore. What we've also done is we traveled in states where we have currently demands for reservation, and we've had protests demanding reservation. A lot of that is linked to jobs and farming. These are children of farmers who no longer find farming viable, who no longer can find jobs because we haven't created enough jobs in our states. And that is why we've now got a fresh demand for reservation in several states.
Thanks, Faye. Nikunj, getting to the markets, you're probably India's foremost champion of equity, mutual funds, and hero of the Aam Aadmi investor with a major role to play in the SIP revolution. We've done Jan Nivesh, I don't know how many people know, which is now the world's largest investor education program. Because the current market cap to GDP ratio is still not at 2008 levels, even in spite of a lot of this. How much catch-up still remains?
If I really have to throw in that wave of optimism, are we doing better than the world in terms of GDP? The answer to that is yes. Can we do better? The answer to that is yes. Do we have potential to do much better? The answer to that is absolutely yes. Now, what pains me is that the Aam Aadmi in India is actually not believing in what India is really capable of. India's biggest private bank is owned by foreigners. India's biggest FMCG company is owned by foreigners. India's biggest liquor company, Anand, liquor company is also owned by foreigners. I guess what we must understand is that India has a potential to grow. It is just that we need to believe in it. I guess it's high time, we start looking ourselves and start believing in what we're capable of. Look at the kind of world-class companies we managed to create, TCS, Infosys, Reliance. So for a vibrant economy, Anand, the flow of credit is very, very important. So for me, believe, I think, is the ecosystem which we need to create. And with belief, I guess productivity and other things will be taken care of.
Navika, now you are probably the best expert today in India. Let me ask you with this question. Is there a possibility of populism getting center stage in the run-up to the Lok Sabha election? Will there be laxity?
The voter of India today has shown that whether he's in the rural areas, whether he's a distressed farmer or somebody doing very well, wherever, in whichever category he is, the voter of India knows what's best for India. That's the way he has voted in these 5 state elections, and that's the warning signal that's gone on to all political parties that this is the intelligent voter who's going to take a call in the 2019 elections for the Lok Sabha. Coming back to the issue of profligacy, I think it's too late for the top management in the government to now think of any lollipops. The fact is that financially, there is no legroom for profligacy, and politically, I think there is no sense because the voter of India understands when things are being done for his long-term benefit and when they are being actually, if I can use the word loosely, being bribed only before election. People still want roti, kapda or makan, and now they've added to that list a naukri. Naukri, till that happens, this voter is not going to forgive anybody, and that's where the buck is going to stop.
Thanks, Navika. So Times Now News has, from practically being a complete outsider and a non-entity last year, it has reached 6 crore viewers per month last month and is now the #3 digital platform. And Akrita is the person who's led that. She's basically talking to the younger audience. She's talking to that so-called 28-year-old who's going to be India. With smartphone penetration, access to information, entertainment, connectivity, news, and educational substitution is something that this generation is just taking for granted, and it's sort of only increasing. And even in villages, this is happening. What is this going to do to the so-called demographic dividend, which we have, for some time not been talking about, because this is an empowered generation. And what have you seen are those things that interest them, which you are working with to sort of achieve these numbers?
Well, I think the first thing about the 5 trillion economy that we're talking about and the millennials that you're talking about, that they're empowered, they're entitled, I think 1 trillion of the 5 trillion economy is going to come from the digital economy. And it is these millennials who will be the engines to drive this 1 trillion economy. There are at least 3 or 4 major things that a digital space does. What does it do? It enables you to inform and educate people. It enables you to entertain people. It enables you to empower people. If India takes this opportunity and the millennials work in these fields, we could be the digital factory of the world. The second point that I wanted to make is the studies about the 4th industrial revolution, and this is the real opportunity for the millennials and where they're really interested in, is in terms of whether it's internet services, whether it's artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, and how you're going to enable these people. It's going to be by skilling these millennials to take this opportunity. That's one. But I cannot, resist saying this, that what he was talking about rural India and he was talking about credit. And that gets combined is that we cannot forget the millennials in the rural countryside. At the moment, we have a 35 to 37% internet penetration in rural areas. That's going to double in the next few years. Don't forget the millennials who are still not empowered in the rural areas, and they will drive that growth for you.
That's great and good news, in fact, that there is a lot more headroom, and I can see that actually happen in the farm areas where people are just now moving from non-smartphone to smartphones and are really, really looking at, oh, how can Google Maps help me with something? Or how can, taking a simple picture and sending somebody else actually help in communication, etc. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to India Economic Conclave 2018.
Next week on the India Economic Conclave 2018, we bring you the best and the biggest voices that have revolutionized the SIP culture in the country.
Times Influence Initiative.